No signs of rain so far, but don't forget we are in the rainy season. That is the final rainy season of the year 2023, because we have to the March to May, then there's August to December. Now, anytime it can, but so far, well, no signs. That doesn't mean that you don't carry yourself something in case of anything. You know, by evening, the clouds, the nimbus clouds, I remember, yes, the nimbus clouds, some science, primary science there. And of course, rain would be a good sign of rainfall. I know Sonko, these are things he remembers very well. His P1 science, the types of rainfall and all that. But good, so far within Kampala, looking outside the windows of my studios, the skies are clear and I don't see any sign of rain. I'm having a very interesting guest this morning because we are going to be discussing a very pertinent issue for every Ugandan, by the way. Because even if you may say, for me, that doesn't concern me, well, at the end of the day, the valuations trickle down to you, the final consumer. And of course, we know that people in business don't pay tax. It is you who comes to buy that foots the burden of tax. Now, this morning, we are going to be looking at customs valuations. Many of us have heard of customs. Then now valuations. These things that you bring in, your motor vehicle, how do they arrive at the value of tax you're supposed to pay? If I'm importing a car, if I'm importing a motorbike, how do these guys, how does URA, seriously, and also, and of course we shall try to explain some terms that sometimes people who go through agents will tell you things you don't understand and you end up even paying more. So today we are blessed to understand more of this. And I have Emmanuel Uponja, who happens to be the supervisor customs at the Uganda Revenue Authority. You're most welcome, Emmanuel, to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Chirabo. Good morning, viewers. My name is Emmanuel Uponja, supervisor customs working with Uganda Revenue Authority.
Now, to begin with, what does custom do? When we talk about customs, my viewer want to know, what do you do?
Customs has mandates of one, of collection of customs revenue. That is one of the key responsibilities of customs. The other one is protection of society. You see, we work with the other government agencies in controlling imports of goods, exports of goods. There are some goods that are restricted, so customs will monitor their clearances in controlling the clearance of such goods. We also have a responsibility of providing statistics on customs. It's only customs that has data on international trade. So institutions that need statistics on customs, they can access them from customs. Thank you.
Well, if you didn't know, we have what they call restricted and there's also what they call prohibited. Now, these goods, these are some of the terms that over time you must be knowing very well. What is prohibited? What is restricted? But today's topic, we are looking at customs valuation. And let's look at valuation. When you talk about customs valuation, what entails in this?
Thank you. Customs valuation is a process. Okay, this is a process of deriving at a customs value of imported goods. How do you derive? Okay, at this value? If you went to China and bought goods, and these goods are arrived in Uganda, how does customs arrive at this value, at the price of these goods, so that they form a basis for taxation? They form a basis of taxation. So that process of deriving at customs value is what we call customs valuation. customs valuation.
Now, when we talk about customs valuation, there's usually a word, I hope I get the right pronunciation, that many times we do not understand very well. And I want us to first explain this to the public before we even dive into, because it's very, very common. And that is ad valorem. I hope I've gotten the right word. An agent will talk about it, people in business will talk, but when I was there, I don't know ad valorem. So what is this exactly?
Thank you. Ad valorem.
Ad valorem. What are ad
duties?
valorems? Yes.
Before we go to ad valorem, we need what is a customs value. Okay. What is a customs value? Customs value is that price. Okay. Is that cost of the goods imported for the purposes of levying, okay, of collecting ad valorem duties, ad valorem duties on the imported goods. Ad valorem duties are duties or taxes subjected on imported goods and being expressed as a fraction of the value, as a percentage of the value. For example, if goods are imported and the import duty on that value is 10%, the 10% is the percentage of the import duty levied on such a commodity. So the 10% is the ad valorem duty. It's a percentage, is a fraction of the cost of the goods. Okay, we have 10% would be the import duty of imported goods. Could be 35% as the import duty of the imported goods. It could be 25% as the import duty of the imported. These ones depend on the classes of goods, okay, on the class of goods that are being imported. So ad valorem is an expression of a percentage of the value of the goods, okay. We have others. It may not be ad valorem duty, could be specific duty. A specific duty is collected on the quantity, okay, could be per volume in terms of liters, or per kilogram in terms of weight. For example, you have heard many times our stakeholders, the clients, raising concern that customs is collecting taxes on weights for garments. You have heard many times, okay, collecting duties on garments. It is on T-shirts, for example, where the duties are combined. Okay, the system or the law imposes import duty on T-shirts at 35% of the value, that is the ad valorem duties, or US dollar 3.5 per kilogram, whichever is higher. So that is now a combination of two duties: the ad valorem, which is the percentage, and the specific rate, which is per kilogram. So that is a combination of the two. So we have the ad valorem duties, which is on fractions, on percentages, and then the specific duty, which could be per kilogram, which could be per volume in liters, and so on. So that is duties imposed on imported goods.
Well, very interesting discussion here, and of course there's so much that we are learning, and more so people in business, and also never lose hope. You never know, tomorrow you could be importing so many things in this country, and of course you find then the import duty, all that. But now, Emmanuel, let's go to understand when we talk about, and this is very common, what method does URA use to arrive at these values, to value goods?
Thank you. We have 6 methods used to value imported goods. And these methods are applied sequentially. Okay? The first method of valuation of imported goods is called transaction value method. And this is the primary method of valuation. Any other method for valuing goods is derived from the first method. That's the primary method of valuation. And this is the price actually paid or payable on imported goods plus some adjustments. What do I mean? If you went to China and bought, so for example, garments, if you are in business of importing garments, you paid at the seller. You are the buyer in Uganda, you pay the seller. So for example, $1.2 per shirt, if that's the cost you agreed with the supplier. That's what you paid him. That's the price paid for that cost. However, to move the goods from China to Uganda, you need some other cost to be incurred. Okay? We have handling charges at the counter of export in China. We have loading, they have to load for you, they have to pack for you. And they have, on reaching Mombasa, they have to load for you from China up to the port. Okay, up to the port of loading. And then they put the goods in the vessel, in the ship. So all those costs are transporting from the store or from the warehouse or from the factory up to the loading port. And the cost for moving the goods from in water, in the sea, that transport cost, they will all add up to give you the value for the goods. So those are the adjustments I'm talking of. Those are the adjustments here. So up to Mombasa, or Dar es Salaam, those are our entry ports in the EAC. So the cost of the goods associated on the purchase up to the destination. Our destination, because we work as EAC, East African Community, is Mombasa, is Dar es Salaam. All that cost up to Mombasa, up Dar es Salaam, is the cost of the goods. So if the importer, for example, it's you, and you brought us the document to prove that you bought that shirt from the supplier at 1.2, adding the cost could give maybe 0.05, that's 1.25. Up to Mombasa plus the insured, they were insured. Up to Mombasa, that will be the cost of the good. That's the transaction value. So if all the documents are proved to be genuine, because we have cases where people play with documents, they change the values, where you have 1.25, the person declares $0.5 per piece. So if the documents are verified and found to be correct or accurate, that will be passed as a transaction value. That's what we call the method 1 for valuing good, transaction value method.
Now you've talked of transaction value method, but you've not mentioned then what percentage. Now if you've known it, then I want to know what tax I'm going to pay.
Okay, that is, thank you so much. That is on the value.
Yes.
Of course, now we have different tax heads. Okay, this is just the value. The taxes will be collected based on the commodity you're importing. Okay, we have import duty, which has a varying rates. We have 0%, we have 10%, 25%, 35%. There are actually 4 tariff bands on goods imported. Okay, so this will vary depending on the nature of the goods. We have value added tax, 18% of the value, but if the items are exempted or zero rated, it will be 0%, depending on the item that are imported. We have withholding tax. Everybody imports good has to pay withholding tax unless you are exempted from withholding tax, and infrastructure levy, which is 1.5% if import duty is payable. Those are the different tax heads. Okay, but as far as valuation is concerned, that is the first method. Now, in the event that transaction value method has not been accepted, you have not proved to URA, to customs, that is the truth or the accurate value declared to customs of 1.25, and the customs has doubts in your declared value, there will be an engagement between customs and you through your duly appointed customs agent. Okay, they will keep on asking information about the declared value. If customs have doubts on the declared value, they will go to method 2, which is the transaction value of identical goods. Meaning there's some other person who imported identical goods to what you are clearing now. Somebody brought those goods before. Now you have imported identical to what was cleared on method 1 on transaction value. What was that value declared at that time? That was in the system of URA. So if your transaction has failed and we're using transaction method of identical goods, we shall not apply the value that was given to the previous who? Importer. That was passed on transaction value method. So if your garments came, we cleared you at $1.25 per piece, then this other importer came in with 0.5 and the value was rejected. We are going to appraise this client's consignment with a value of 1.25 per unit. That's an example. Okay, so that is transactional value of identical goods. Now, in the event that we don't have transaction value identical goods in the system, we go to method 3, which is transactional value of similar. Similar means the goods are similar in some attributes. They perform the same functionality. They may not have the same reputation as the identical goods. There are some similar characteristics, okay? Imported from the same country of export, they perform the same function. So we look in the system, who imported, you have imported these goods, you declare 0.5, there's somebody who had a similar item at 1.25. So we shall declare those values at 1.25. We shall appraise your goods at 1.5 using transactional value of similar goods. That is our method 3. So if method 3 also fails, we go to method 4. Method 4. That is a deductive value method.
That sounds interesting.
Deductive value method. What does this entail? We look at now, we come back home here. We look at imported goods, identical goods, or similar goods that we had declared before. What is the price of the greatest aggregate quantity sold in the country? We go to, we do research. We go to the market and we look at the prices of those goods imported, of the identical goods imported, of the similar goods imported. What is the price assigned to the greatest aggregate quantity sold in our country, in Uganda?